Hello everyone, we are going to start with another lecture of performance management, and in this lecture we are going to deal with the concept of cost volume profit analysis, right? See, CVP analysis is a very is an important topic, and it basically identifies the. What is cost volume profit? What is the concept of cost volume profit? See, concept of cost volume profit is simple. It says that it identifies that what is the relationship of cost and profit along with the volume, right? Now, what do I mean by this? See, the concept is simple. We are trying to identify that if sales volume increases or decreases, then what will be its direct impact on profit, whether profit will increase, whether profit will decrease. So this is basically what we are going to deal with CVP analysis, right? Now there are few assumptions in CVP analysis. The first assumption is whenever you are working in CVP concept, then the first assumption is that fixed costs are normally assumed to remain unchanged at all level of output. Now this is what, see, assumption is something which we always assume in a situation when we are unable to tackle something. So we say that okay, fine, let's take an assumption, right? So in this CVP analysis context, we are assuming that fixed cost will remain same at all production volumes. That means what? That means we are not considering any step up effect. Step up effect in the sense, for example, if you are if your machinery can manufacture 500,000 units of a particular product for the whole year, if you manufacture more than 500,000 units, if you want to manufacture more than 500,000 units, you will need another machinery, right? If your supervisor can supervise maximum 100,000 units, and if you need even if you are producing more output, then probably you need more supervisors to supervise that, right? So somehow it's the reality that whenever your production, fixed cost is usually constant, but to a certain level. If you increase by that particular level, then usually fixed cost tends to increase, right? There is a step up. For example, you need to hire another machinery. So if rent expense is $30 per annum, then rent will be around 60,000 per annum, because now you are hiring another machinery. If you hire another supervisor, then you have to pay him salary, right? So right now we are assuming that there is no step up effect. The fixed cost is going to remain same at all activity levels, right? The another important point is that selling price per unit. Before this, we have one more assumption, and that assumption is that variable cost per unit is same at all levels of activity. That means we are not considering any step up effect in variable cost as well. Now, what do I mean by this? See, if you produce more output, and if you want to produce more output, more than a certain limit, then labor can be a limiting factor in that case, and somehow you have to pay labor overtime for more and more production. Or maybe if you purchase a lot of different material, a big quantity of material, you may get some discount. So in case of all these things, we are not assuming that very labor cost will increase after 500,000 units, or maybe material cost may decrease after 500,000. We are not assuming anything like this, right? So we are assuming that there is nothing like this happen. That this is going to happen, right? The third thing is that selling price. We are also assuming that selling price will remain same at all sales volume, because see, there is a market appetite, right? You can sell a specific amount of units in the market. If you want to sell more units, then probably you have to give some incentive to the customer. You have to create the demand, and demand creation means you have to give some benefit to the customer in terms of selling prices. For example, you are giving 10% extra to them, you are giving one unit free for every 5 units they are purchasing, or you are giving them some certain kind of discounts. So all these things will result in effectively reduce the selling price. So what we are assuming that company can sell as many units as company wants to sell without compromising on the selling price. So we are assuming three things here. We are assuming that selling price will remain same at all sales volume, right? We are assuming that variable cost per unit will remain same at all production volumes, and we are assuming that fixed cost in total will remain same at all production volumes. right? So these two will remain same at all production volumes, and this will remain same at all sales volume, right? So this is basically what the basic assumption of CVP is, right? Now we know what is contribution per unit. Contribution is selling price minus all variable cost per unit, right? So I'm not going to this discussion. CS ratio we'll discuss it later, right? The first important point which we are going to discuss is the break-even point. Now what is break-even point? Break-even point is a point where company earn no profit and no loss, right? If company earn no profit and no loss, we are saying that company is at the break even point. Now the question is that why a company is interested in the identification of a point where company earn no profit and no loss? Because company will plan its sales volume in such a manner that it can sell at least more than break even point. For example, if the break even if the break even sales volume is around 5,000 units, this means what? This means that if company sells 5,000 units, then the company will earn no profit and no loss. That will be a break even point, like your passing marks, right? So company will try to sell more units. Company will try to sell at least more units, with at least some units which are more than 5,000. And if some situation comes to the company and we are expecting that sales volume will be less than 5,000, then we will try to promote something. We will try to do something in order to bring sales volume over and above 5,000 units. So break even is simply like your passing marks. I mean, you should know before attempting the paper that what is the passing mark, because if passing marks are 50%, you will work accordingly. If passing marks are 70%, you will work accordingly. You will work harder. If your passing marks are just 20% or 30%, you don't have to work that much hard. So it's simply like that. Now, at break even point, now what is a break even point? In let me try to explain this. Break even point, as I said, that this is basically a point where company earn no profit and no loss, right? This is basically a point where the contribution of company, sorry, just a second, where contribution is equals to fixed cost. Total contribution is equals to total fixed cost. And it's also a point where company's total sales revenue is equals to variable cost. Now, what do I mean by this? See, marginal costing is usually used in this situation, and marginal costing statement is prepared like this: sales revenue minus variable cost will give you what? Contribution. And if you did, when you deduct fixed cost from that contribution, you will get what? You will get profit. Right? This is basically the situation. Now, um, this statement is saying that look, at break even point you have no profit, no loss, zero profit, zero loss, and your fixed cost will be equals to contribution. Now what do you mean by this? See, if contribution is $5,000, if contribution is $10,000, and your fixed cost is $12,000, you will there will be a loss for the to the company. If contribution is $10,000 and fixed cost is around $8,000, then company will earn profit. In this case, company will earn loss. Now, when company will earn no profit, no loss? Only in a situation when fixed cost is exactly equals to the contribution margin. This is basically a situation when company will earn no profit and no loss. So at break even point, just remember my words, fixed cost is always equals to contribution, right? The third important point is that at break even, these three conditions will occur. Three conditions or these three situations are present at break even point. The third one is sales revenue is equals to variable cost. Now this is also simple. See, sales revenue is suppose 100,000, right? And variable cost is around let's say 60,000. So what will be the contribution? It will be 40,000. And suppose fixed cost is also 40,000, so the profit or loss is zero. Now this means what? This means, see, two types of cost we are deducting. One is variable cost and one is fixed cost. So sum of both these costs should be equals to the revenue. Total cost should be equals to revenue. Now, Uh, Now the question is how we will calculate the break even point. See, the calculation of break even point is really very simple. There are two ways in which we can calculate the break even point. The first method of calculating the break even point is break even in terms of units. Break even in terms of units. And how we will calculate that? That's simple. Sorry, we divide total fixed cost with contribution per unit. Now, when I'm saying total fixed cost, I mean fixed production, admin, selling, marketing, all type of fixed cost. Divided by contribution margin per unit. Contribution per unit is simply selling price minus all variable cost per unit, right? So this is basically how we will calculate this. So now suppose fixed cost is 50,000 and suppose contribution margin per unit is $10, right? So when you will divide fixed cost with contribution per unit, you will get an answer. Suppose you will get 5,000 units, right? So now what these 5,000 units are representing, these 5,000 units are representing that if sales volume is less than 5,000 units, company will suffer loss. If sales volume is equals to 5,000, then company will earn no profit and no loss. And if sales volume is greater than 5,000, then company will generate profit, right? So this is basically what do we mean by break even in terms of units. It's simple, fixed cost divided by contribution per unit. There is another way of calculating break even in terms of sales revenue. Now what do you mean by this? See, if I'm saying that your paper is of 100 marks, right? I'm saying that your paper is of 100 marks, and your passing marks are 50%. You have to earn 50% marks, and there are MCQs which are going to be examined in the paper, and one MCQ is of 2 marks. That means there are two ways to express your passing percentage. Either I can say secure 50% marks, secure 50 marks, or I can say that try to do 25 correct MCQs. Both will result in passing the paper. But in the first case, we are saying that you have to earn 50 marks, and the second situation, I'm saying you have to make 25 MCQs correct, right? So both are completely same things, but expressed in different manner. Similarly, break even in revenue is what? Break even in revenue will tell you how much revenue you should generate in order to earn no profit and no loss. So this is in terms of dollars. Revenue is usually, of course, in terms of dollars, and this break even in units is obviously in terms of unit. So how you will calculate that? Fixed cost will be divided by CS ratio. Now CS ratio is what? See, contribution to sales ratio is what? Contribution divided by sales. Now if it's up to you, if you are considering total contribution divided with total sales revenue, or if you are using per unit contribution, then you have to divide it with the selling price, which is of 1 unit, right? So fixed cost divided by CS ratio will give you break even in units, break even in revenue, right? And the next point is margin of safety. Now, margin of safety is a very simple concept. See, let me give you a very simple example of this. Suppose 50 marks are passing marks. Passing marks are 50%. There are two students. The first student scored 60% marks, or let's suppose first student scored 54% marks, and the second student scored around 90% marks, right? Passing marks are 50%. Who is at a safer position? Student B. He is at a safer position because he earned 40% extra marks as compared with the passing marks, and this one scored just 4% extra marks as compared with the passing marks. So he is in dangerous position. He is more at more risky position as compared with student B, right? Similarly, in company, we calculate margin of safety just to make sure that how many extra units we are selling. For example, suppose break even is 5,000 units, and there is a company A who is budgeted to sell, whose sales volume, budgeted sales volume, is 5,500 units, and there is company B whose budgeted sales volume is 8,000 units. So this company is at a safer position because sales volume is 3,000 units more than the break even. And if in the first situation company is not at a good position because company is just expecting to sell 500 units more than budget, so in case something went wrong with the sales volume of company will suffer losses. So margin of safety will tell you this thing. Now there are three ways to calculate margin of safety, right? The first one is the margin of safety in terms of units. I'm just highlighting this. Margin of safety in terms of unit. That is the difference between budgeted sales volume and the break-even sales volume, which I just calculated that these are the break-even sales volume and these are the budgeted sales volume. So in the first situation, margin of safety is 500 units. In the second situation, margin of safety is 3,000 units, right? The second way of calculating the same concept is in terms of sales revenue, right? We will deduct budgeted sales revenue and break-even sales revenue. And the third one is to calculate, and the third way of calculating margin of safety is margin of safety in terms of percentage. Margin of safety in terms of percentage will tell you what. Okay, fine. We will discuss its use later. Like what is the reason of calculating margin of safety in percentage? There are two options: margin of safety in units divided by budgeted sales, or margin of safety in revenue divided by budgeted revenue. It's up to you. You can take units, you can take revenue, both. And targeted profit is another concept. Okay, fine. Let's do these two concepts first, and then we will discuss the last part, right? See, this is a very simple question. Budgeted sales revenue, sorry, budgeted sales revenue is 500,000, variable cost is 300,000, contribution is 2 lakh, and fixed cost is 1 lakh 40,000. Now, we have to calculate everything. We have to calculate break even, margin of safety, and I will try to explain those graphs as well. Graphs, I don't know if you guys have studied it before, but we will discuss its graph as well. See, break evens, first of all, let's calculate break even in units. Break even in units is what? Fixed cost divided by contribution margin per unit. Now, what is fixed cost? Fixed cost is around, just a second, let me close this window. Fixed cost is what? Fixed cost is around 1,40,000. And contribution margin per unit is what? See, total contribution is given here. This is total contribution, right? If you want to calculate per unit, you have to divide 200,000 with 40,000. I mean, per unit, we just divide the total amount with the number of units, right? So, 200,000 divided by $200,000 divided by 40,000 units is equals to 5, right? So 1,40,000 divided by 5 is 28,000, right? So what is the break even in units? Break even in units is 28,000. And this answer also makes sense. Why? Because company is selling 40,000 units, and company is generating profit. That means company is selling more than break even point, because and that's the only reason why company is generating profit. So company must have sold 28,000. Company should sell 28,000 units in order to achieve the break even. If company sell more units, it will generate profit, right? Now let's calculate break even in revenue as well. Right? And that is what? That is fixed cost divided by contribution to sales ratio. Now what is fixed cost? Fixed cost is 1,40,000, and CS ratio, now it's up to you. If you want to use total contribution, you may. If you want to use contribution margin per unit, you may. Let's calculate CS ratio by using total contribution. So total contribution is 200,000. Total contribution is 200,000 divided by revenue is 500,000. So this will give you CS ratio. CS ratio is contribution divided by sales. So 200 divided by 500 will give you 0.4. Right? So if you divide 140,000 with 0.4, you will get 3,50,000. Right? There is another way of calculating break-even in revenue, which is an easier option, but I don't consider that option in my discussion part. If you multiply break-even in units with selling price, you will get break-even in revenue. But I personally think that this is a shortcut. If examiner will only ask you to calculate break-even in revenue, what you will do? You will calculate break-even in units first and then calculate revenue. It will show the examiner that you don't know how to calculate break-even in revenue directly, right? So that's not a good sign, right? So this is basically the calculation of break-even, simple calculation. Now the next point is to calculate margin of safety. MS is margin of safety. Margin of safety, first of all, let's calculate margin of safety in units. And that is what? That is simply budgeted sales. Since we are calculating in units, so let's consider budgeted sales volume minus break-even sales volume. Now what is budgeted sales volume? 40,000 units. And what is the break-even sales volume? 28,000 units. That means what? That means company is selling 12,000 more units. 12,000 units more as compared with the break-even point. So this is basically its safety margin, right? Company is at a safe position because it's selling 12,000 units more. Now, the next point is to calculate margin of safety in revenue, right? Margin of safety in revenue is simple. Budgeted sales revenue minus break-even sales revenue. So what is budgeted sales revenue? 500,000. And what is break-even sales revenue? Break-even sales revenue we have calculated here, 3,50,000. So this will be 500 minus 350 is, I think, 150. Yeah. So company is right now generating 150,000 revenue more as compared with the break-even point, right? It's basically its safe position, right? Now, the last point, which I will discuss in the previous lecture, this profit part, targeted profit part. I'm calculating it directly here. See, right now, how much profit company is expecting? 60,000. Suppose your manager comes to you and he asks that, look, we don't want to earn 60,000 profit. He said that we want to earn 100,000 profit. And you have to tell me that how many units we should sell in order to earn profit of 100,000. Right now, what is the requirement? Someone is asking me to calculate a sales volume in order to earn a specific level of profit. How you will calculate that? Let's see. See, in what happened in break-even is that at break-even point, sales revenue minus variable cost is contribution minus fixed cost is profit, right? So at break-even point, what is the situation? At break-even, we don't have any profit. So if fixed cost is 40,000, I have to generate a contribution of 40,000, right? That's why we keep only fixed cost in the numerator. But if suppose I don't want to earn a break even point, I want to have a profit of 20,000. Now, if I want to have a profit of 20,000, how much contribution should I generate? How much contribution should I generate in order to have a $20,000 profit? Simple, contribution should be 60,000, right? So, what is the targeted contribution? That is the sum of fixed cost and profit. Whatever profit you want, you just add here and you will get the contribution. So in break even formula, what happen is we don't want to have any profit, so we add 0 here, and it doesn't make any difference. We don't show it here. We write 0 because we don't want to earn any profit, right? But if you want to earn any profit, you just simply need to add that profit here. Now what I'm trying to explain is, see, sales volume to earn targeted profit is simply total fixed cost plus profit, whatever profit you want to earn, targeted profit, write it targeted profit, divided by contribution per unit. So it's simply the break even formula, with the only difference is that we extra added this part here. This part is additional here, but else it's a break even formula, right? So how can we do this? See, total fixed cost in this question was 1,40,000, and suppose we want to earn a profit of 1 lakh, divided by contribution per unit is 5. So 2 lakh divided by, just a second, no, not 2 lakh, 2 lakh 40,000 divided by 5 is, sorry, 5 is 48,000. Company has to generate 48,000 units in order to earn $100,000 profit, right? Similarly, if you want to calculate sales revenue to earn targeted profit, how you will calculate that? See, it's also simple. You will consider total fixed cost plus targeted profit divided by what we did in break even in revenue case. We divided it with CS ratio now. So here we will also divide it with CS ratio, right? So the fixed cost is 1,40,000. Numerator will remain same, and CS ratio was around 0.4. We have already calculated that. So instead of just dividing 140 with 0.4, what we did, we divided 140 plus 100,000 divided by 4, whatever profit we want, 600,000. We must generate a revenue of 600,000. Right? So this is basically this is a very brief introduction. This is just a recall of what CVP analysis you guys have did in past, right? Now in the next video we will do its graph in the sense we will try to prepare break-even chart and profit volume chart. First I will explain what are those graphs, and then we will use this the same question in order to plot that graph. I know plotting of graph is not required in F5 paper, but still you should know how to plot the graph in order to interpret it properly, right? So thank you for watching this video. Take care of yourself. Have a nice day. Allah Hafiz.